You're listening to Before We Get It Right, real moms, real conversations for the messy middle. I'm Leah.
And I'm Catherine, and this is a space for honesty, not perfection, before we get it right. Welcome back, everyone. Today's episode feels like one that I know I personally needed, and honestly, I think a lot of you listening are going to feel that way too. We are talking about something that shows up across so many different seasons in our lives, but we don't always have the words for it. That feeling of going through the motions, still showing up, doing all the things that we seem to be repeating just daily, but that constant overwhelm and overstimulation makes it really easy to get lost.
Yeah, and what I love most about this topic is that it doesn't matter what your hard thing is. It could be grief, it could be new motherhood, it could be building a business from the ground up, or navigating a relationship ending, or just being in one of those seasons where everything feels like a lot. It's very easy to feel far away from yourself, and today we want to talk about how you find your way back.
And that is through calming your nervous system, through pausing, through those small intentional moments that are actually doable in real life. There's not a perfect morning routine that you have to build from scratch, not a weekend retreat that you need to get away, just real things for real women that are in real seasons. I want to start by just naming something that I think is really important, which is that losing yourself in a hard season is definitely not a personal failure. I wish there was a better way to say losing yourself. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, right? Just not fully connected, not feeling fully aligned to your best self just feels a little bit more appropriate. So, whatever that feeling is for you, it's not a sign that you're not strong enough or spiritual enough or that you have done something wrong or that you're not doing enough or that you're not working on yourself. There are just seasons of life that will pull you away from yourself. And I don't know how else to say it, but it is what it is. And I feel like we know exactly what I'm talking about. This is called being a human in a very chaotic world.
And what makes it tricky is that it doesn't always look dramatic from the outside. It's not always a breakdown or a crisis moment. Sometimes it's this slow, quiet drift. You stop doing the things that fill you up. You stop noticing what you actually need. You're just so focused on surviving the season that there's no room to actually live in it.
When I find myself in this season, it's really when that mental noise in your head becomes very constant. You are constantly thinking ahead, always solving, always holding everything together. And somewhere in all of that, the quieter version of you just gets drowned out, especially if you are a mom. And when that starts to happen, you don't even notice that it's happening until one day you look up and realize you can't actually remember the last time that you felt connected to yourself. And it's really easy to lose yourself in that.
And here's the part that I think is really important to understand from a nervous system standpoint. Your body doesn't distinguish between big, life altering stress and the chronic, everyday kind of overwhelm. It doesn't show the difference between a genuine threat in a full inbox and three kids in a business and a relationship that needs attention. It just reads all of it as we are not safe, we are not settled. And so it stays in that heightened state. And over time, that is what disconnection can feel like.
I personally was just in a very heightened state last week. I think heightened state is a good way to a good way to frame it. I was voice messaging Leah all of the things that I felt like I needed to deal with all at the same time. I started spiraling, and I like to think of myself as, I don't know, Leah, I think you can vouch for me that I'm usually a generally grounded, calm energy, but there are times when I'm definitely not. Nobody is perfect, and we all have our moments, but that spiral came down to me asking myself what I'm even doing with my life and just questioning everything. So if you've ever been there, trust me, you are not alone. And it's really easy to get into that kind of mental spiral.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a few of those seasons for me, but one that really stands out was right before I opened the store. So on the outside, it really looked like everything was building in this exciting way. Like things are growing, opportunities are coming in, we're taking this huge leap. But internally, I was very overwhelmed. Like, I remember feeling like my brain never shut off, which, Catherine, I know you witnessed firsthand when you came to help me put it together. because I was just constantly thinking about the financial aspect, the inventory, the timelines, whether this was the right decision for our family. And at the same time, still trying to show up as a mom and as a wife and as a friend and also as a business owner and a boss to my team. It just felt like everything was really happening all at once and I wasn't sure where to put it all. And I think what caught me off guard was that it didn't feel like excitement most of the time. It just felt like pressure, like this constant hum in my body that I really couldn't turn down, which of course led me to not sleeping well. I was really reactive to situations around me. I felt very anxious in a way that didn't feel like me. And looking back, I can see that my body was trying to keep up with everything that was going on and all the things on my plate. But in the moment, I couldn't help but feel like, "Okay, what is wrong with me? Why can't I handle this better? Why am I not more excited?" And I do think that's why this conversation matters so much because when you're in it, it's really easy to make it mean something, like, about you instead of understanding what's actually happening underneath it all.
I really love what you said about you had nowhere to put it. It's all up in your brain, all up in your head, and you don't know where to put it, and eventually you run out of room. And so, whatever you are going through, it doesn't matter what season you're in, your nervous system is not broken. And sometimes I think when we get in those heightened states, you're like, well, what's wrong with me? Why am I not more excited? Why am I not feeling this way? Your nervous system is actually doing what it was designed to do. The question is just, how do we help it learn that it's safe to come down? Because I myself have a hard time coming back down from that heightened state, and how do we help our nervous system find its way back to be regulated? And that's really what this whole episode is about. But I do want to preface I know there's a lot of talk about nervous system regulation these days, right? I'm glad it's being talked about more, but it can also sound a little bit intimidating, and it doesn't need to be. I think it can be very practical. It can be something that's not added on to our list. And so today is all about making it easier for you. Okay, but before we get into the practical stuff, I do just want to spend a minute on what coming back to yourself actually means, because I think it can sound a little vague, abstract, and I really don't want it to feel like this unreachable or unattainable thing. And coming back to yourself also might mean different things for different people.
Right? Because when you're in the thick of something hard, hearing "just come back to yourself" can almost feel frustrating. Like, "Okay, great, but how?" And also, what does that even look like right now? In this season with so many different things on your plate, it can be really hard to get that clear picture.
And it is hard, but here is how I like to think about it. I like to think about coming back to myself that it's not a destination. It's not this place that you arrive at when the hard thing is over or when your life looks a certain way. It's more about like a series of small moments where your body just feels safe enough to exhale or pause or take a deep breath. Wherever your mind just gets a little quieter when everything feels so noisy, which I know what you're going to say. Well, like, how do I do that? It's not, I don't think of it as this place where you all of a sudden are 5 steps ahead or you all of a sudden get all of those things done on your list. But you're actually here, like in the present moment, just a little bit more settled. And that's just how I like to think about it.
Yeah, and I love that because it makes it feel possible. Even in the hardest seasons, even when nothing on the outside has changed, you can have a moment of coming back to yourself in the middle of a really hard day. It doesn't have to wait.
No, and there's something I think that is also worth saying here, which is that coming back to yourself doesn't mean going back to who you were or where you were before the season or the hard thing. Because sometimes you just genuinely can't, especially if it's a really, really hard season. Those change you. And sometimes when you're honest about it, you wouldn't even want to go back to who you were before that. And sometimes that change, I actually for sure know that it's growth. Thinking more of it as growth rather than change. And so it's less about going back to yourself and more about returning to your values, to your body, to that quiet voice underneath all of that noise that knows what you actually need in those hard moments.
So, what does coming back to yourself actually mean? I think that can mean different things for different people. What does it look like in a tangible way? How do you know when you're home with yourself versus when you've drifted? For me, it usually shows up in really small ways. I'm shorter with my kids, I'm moving faster than I need to, I'm jumping from one thing to the next without actually finishing anything, and I can feel that low level tension in my body. But then mentally, it's like everything starts to feel louder. Every decision feels bigger than it actually is. I start overthinking things that normally wouldn't even phase me. And I notice I'm either trying to control everything or I'm avoiding things altogether. There's not really all this in between. I also think a big one for me is that I stop trusting myself. I'll look outside myself for answers, second guess my instincts, or feel like I need reassurance on things I normally really would feel clear on. Whereas when I feel more at home in myself, things just feel quieter. Not perfect, not easy, but steadier. I can make decisions without spiraling. I can be present with my kids without feeling pulled in a million directions. I'm still busy, but it doesn't feel chaotic on the inside. So for me, it's less about what's happening externally and more about how it feels internally. That's kind of my own signal.
Yeah, and I think you described it really well. And I think it can be really hard to describe what that actually means. And when I was thinking about this episode, I was thinking for me, when I am not at home with myself or feeling aligned, it's really this feeling of just being very unsettled. I'm scatterbrained. I can't focus. I talked about already how last week I was spiraling mentally. And it's when I have a lot to do, and I know I have a lot to do, but I get 0% of it done. Like I can't finish even one of those tasks. And that, when I get to that point, that is my body telling me that something is up. So, when that happens, what do we do about it? The power of the pause is what I like to call it. And if there's one thing that you take away from this episode, it is the pause. And I know that sounds really simple, but I do really mean it. Like it can be that simple. The pause is one of the most powerful tools that is available to our nervous system, and it's not used as much as it should be. And guess what? It's free. Like you don't even have to spend any money on it. And the pause is very helpful, especially for the women who are feeling very overwhelmed or going through hard seasons. Some of us, well, most of us actually, when we are going through these hard seasons, we tend to just push through.
Because we're so conditioned to do just that, to be productive, to be useful, to handle it. And in a hard season, especially, that instinct to just push through can feel like the only option. Like if you stop, everything is just going to fall apart. But here's the thing, your nervous system does not reset through pushing, it resets through slowing down.
And the pause is really just the moment between something happening and how you respond to it, that gap between the stimulus and the reaction. And for most of us, when we're dysregulated, that gap it's basically non-existent and we're just reacting constantly, and it's coming from a place of survival mode. And the pause is what creates a space for something different.
And what we really want to emphasize is that the pause doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute meditation or a walk in nature, as lovely as those things are and as helpful as they can be. A pause can be before you respond to the text that made your stomach drop. You put your phone down and you take 3 slow breaths. A pause can be sitting in your car for 60 seconds before you walk inside. A pause can be stepping outside, looking at the sky, and just letting yourself be a person for 2 minutes instead of a human with a to do list. Essentially, you're just separating yourself from that moment and from that feeling for a very quick second to let your nervous system rest and collect yourself.
And those little things count. Those things, they're not actually small. I mean, they seem small, stepping outside and taking 3 breaths. It seems small, but they're not for your nervous system. Those things are literally changing what is happening to your nervous system. And the more that you practice them, the more that your body can start to learn that it is allowed to relax. No matter what we think about when it comes to relaxing, we can. And not everything is an emergency, even though sometimes it feels that way. And you are safe. Leah, I don't know why I just said your name like
I feel like I was getting called on in class.
That was so weird. Not even that you were, like, in trouble or
Yeah.
something. You're not in trouble,
How did
but
my nervous system go into overdrive.
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But what is a real life example of how you pause? Like, what does that look like for you?
So for me, there are 2 things that come to mind. The first one is that I am notorious for sitting in my car for a couple minutes before I go in somewhere, like the transition from my car inside, and I usually take that time to just, like, have a moment to myself, recollect, and also just kind of remind myself of what my next phase of my day is going to look like. A lot of times, that is the transition from either going from work to go to school pickup. I take a second in my car before I walk in and grab my son, or going from work home, and I take a second to just kind of get back into a zone before I go in to my house because the overwhelm from work and the overwhelm at home are very different types of overwhelm. And I need to set aside the work overwhelm in order to be fully present and deal with the at home overwhelm, right? So that is one area. And kind of playing on that too. For me, a pause also looks like I'm a big walker. Catherine knows that. And so this is an example of more of a bigger pause versus those little like scrappier ones that we hinted at before. I tend to take if I'm really dealing with something heavy, I will take a very long walk. I'll take our dog on a long walk. I'll put on music that I can just kind of vibe to and get some dopamine going. Like an instant dopamine hit for me in those moments actually is very helpful because it does make me feel good. It brings me back home a little bit. Like, I don't know about you guys, but for me, music is something that does that in general. It's something that does bring me back home a little bit to myself. Even listening to music that has had impacts on me in different points of my life helps me get centered in order to be able to move forward a little bit clearer. So those are different ways in which I can do it in my day-to-day that don't take a ton of energy, but do make a huge difference.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I love that you brought up music. I don't know. I feel like you and we don't listen to the same music.
Oh, we have very different music tastes.
We do. I don't want to say that you're more old school, just kind of different, right?
It is I listen to a very wide genre of music, and I am the product of 2 people who were big music buffs, both of my parents, and they introduced me to a lot of music. So it's like I was really into, like, Led Zeppelin in high school, so I will go back and listen to this Led Zeppelin album that I used to rock in, like, the 8th grade and go back and listen to it occasionally when I'm in, like, hard seasons, and it does bring me back home a little bit, and I think that just goes into reconnecting with your inner child just a little bit, and that makes you feel safe. And so, yeah, that's usually my go-to, but it's not calm music in any way. It is this, like, raging music, but it feels good to me on the inside.
But it's so funny. I was just jamming. I don't know if you saw like Justin Bieber's Coachella performance and how like it was this healing performance for like not only his inner child, but everyone that watched it. Like I was watching clips of that performance and I was like to tears. I was so emotional about it. And so you better believe that I was jamming to Biebs like all day yesterday.
Yeah, but again, he's nostalgic for you. Like, he
He is.
plays
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
he is.
Well, and Catherine, I mean, I gave some examples of my pauses, but on the other end of the spectrum, when do you find it hardest to stop going? What are those moments that really pull you in and it make it challenging to move on? Explain.
Um, I would say all the time. Like when you're feeling so overwhelmed, how do you stop? I mean, it's really hard. I think you have to be very intentional. So last week, when I was spiraling and I was voice messaging you and all the things, you were like, "Well, what advice have you given me when you get into that?" And I know we've talked about this before, but it is my own advice of my brain dumping exercise. But for some reason, I needed Leah to remind me to do that. But I did it, and so I stopped, I did my brain dumping exercise, and if you haven't listened to previous episodes, it's basically setting I do a 3-minute timer on my phone. I have a blank piece of paper, and I have a pen, and I write down every single thing that is in my brain that I need to get done. It is like my brain dumping to-do list, and when I get it all out on paper, I then circle the 5 top things that I actually need to focus on, and the rest just doesn't need to get done right now. But after that, it really always brings me this sense of clarity. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is a lot, but also at the same time, it's really not that bad. And it's really hard to get clarity in your mind when you don't give yourself space to even hear yourself. And I think that's where that pause really comes in.
Okay, next, let's get really practical because this is important for us. We want these to feel genuinely doable, not aspirational, not for the version of me who has more time, for you right now in whatever season it is you find yourself in.
We have 6 of these, and they are and we're gonna walk you through all of them. So, let's go. The first one we have, this is a nervous system reset that takes it could take you under 1 minute to do. It could even take you 30 seconds because we're calling it the 30-second grounding reset, and it's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this one, I do find myself coming back to over and over again. I actually have it saved in my phone, like under my favorites, just as a reminder. And it's something that I can always come back to in any state that I'm in. So all you do is you pause and you notice 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can feel. And that could even be the texture on your clothes, the ground underneath your feet, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And that's it. It almost sounds too simple, but what it's doing is it's pulling your attention out of your own head and back into your body. And that is where the nervous system regulation actually happens. This one is easy to forget, but when you do it, you actually do feel better after.
Yeah, where did you hear about this?
I don't know, Leah. I was actually thinking about it because I was having a discussion with Claude, which, okay, if you listen to our ChatGPT episode, I was like non-existent in the Claude world, and now Claude is my BFF. So I've come a long way in a short amount of time. But when I was talking about, questioning everything I want to do with my life and just this, practical mindfulness and sharing of it, I always get in my head of like, well, who are you to like teach people or how to do these types of things? And then I thought about, I mean, I've been practicing meditation, mindfulness, being more intentional. It's been over 10 years now. So I
That
picked up a lot along the way, but where I learned this one specifically, I don't remember.
Well, I imagine it's out there because there is
It totally is out there.
yeah, there's
I
real
don't know who the founder of it is, but you know what? I will look it up, and the founder of whoever created this practice will be in the show notes.
yeah, I mean, there is real neuroscience behind this. It's called sensory grounding, and it works by activating your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for calm, rational thinking. When you're in fight or flight, that part just kind of goes offline. This brings it back. So it's not just a nice mindfulness exercise, it's literally shifting what your brain is doing, and it only takes a minute or 30 seconds.
Doesn't it? You can take a full minute, but 30 seconds will do. And if there is anyone, you guys, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad or anything. These are practical tips not added on to your to do. But if you're like, yeah, where do I find the time for this? I urge, and this is what I do to myself when I'm like, Catherine, you don't have time for a 30-minute meditation. I take a look at my phone and I look at the amount of time spent on my phone in a week. You know how your phone shows you that? So your weekly report of how much time you spend on your phone,
That's
all of
it.
all of these things that we tell you today, these 6 little resets could take you under 5 minutes, and I guarantee you could, if you're a little bit more intentional, you can squeeze them in.
Definitely. Well, and then the second one is called the name it practice. And this one is deceptively powerful. Instead of pushing a feeling away or worse, white knuckling through it, you just name it. Out loud in your head, I feel overwhelmed. I feel anxious right now. I feel stretched thin and I'm running on empty. Just name what is actually there, say it out loud or write it down. And I've heard this in a number of different places over time as well, both in therapy, both like out in the world. If you follow anybody in the wellness space, being able to acknowledge that feeling gives it so much less power.
And because it's a part of you, and they say, name it to tame it is what I've heard. And it comes from the idea that labeling an emotion actually reduces its intensity. And like you said, it's less powerful, it gives it less power. When you name what you're feeling, you're actually signaling to your nervous system that you have heard it. It doesn't just have to be this alarm that keeps going off. And that small act of being witnessed, even just by yourself, it can create a really surprising amount of relief. And it kind of also tells your body that you don't have to fix it. You just have to acknowledge it and that it's a part of you. And I think it was actually Gabby Bernstein is someone that I've done some of her courses before, and there's this part of you that ever feels shame or frustrated or grief that you're trying to bury and like not deal with. She said to picture like sitting down with that emotion, like actually visualizing it next to you and like giving it a hug and just that acknowledgement and that it is a part of you and it's nothing to feel shameful or bad about,
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be the key to emotional regulation, right?
which we're all working on.
Forever and always.
Okay, number 3 is slowing one moment down. And this is for the women who feel like they cannot slow their whole day down because, to be honest, who can actually do that? That's like all of us. And you don't have to. You don't have to slow down your whole day. I think there's this big push for slow living, right? And I did actually base Cozy Hearted like on slow living. I think I had that pinned on my Instagram. But you can just pick one thing in your day. Something that you're already doing because again, we're not adding more on to your list. It's just doing it with your full intention. Whether you're drinking your morning coffee or matcha, whatever you drink in the morning, washing your face at night, which I don't always do that every night, but I know I need to. Sitting, like Leah said, sitting in your car before you go in, walking from the parking lot into wherever you're going. If you're going in for kid pickup, it's really just slowing that one moment down and being present in it.
Yeah, it could be recording a podcast with your friend and not paying attention to all the notifications that are popping up on your computer.
Which Leah's working on that because I can see her eyeballs when a notification pops up on screen.
And I can see when Catherine notices. But the rule is really just no phone, no multitasking, nothing else. Just that one thing all the way. And it sounds genuinely small, but this is actually one of the most regulating things that you can do consistently because you're practicing presence and being intentional. You're practicing being in your body. You're telling your nervous system right now in this moment, we are not running from anything, and your body listens to that. I was just going to say a quick note on that is I'm sure everybody has probably heard of Mel Robbins. What is it, the 5 minute theory in the morning?
The 5-second rule?
5 second rule, is that what it is? Did I say
Where you
5 minute?
where you count down like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you get out of bed?
Yeah, but she has specific things that happen after that, like, you don't look at your phone, like, you drink water, you have to get some type of, like, light, you get out of your bed, like, that's the whole thing, so you don't spiral and get in your own head, but I think it kinda plays into this in the sense of, like, you're not I don't know if any of you are the type of people who will lay in your bed in the morning and look at your phone because I can absolutely fall into the habit of that because I wake up thinking, "Okay, what did I miss while I was sleeping?" But I think when you do that, your body's already in the mode of waking up, but then you have your phone and you start paying attention to all these things, and I think it sets your mind up in a way to be less centered throughout the entire day because you're trying to focus on too many things, and our brains don't process information that way. And so I think it is just, like, integrating that into your day-to-day right from the start, picking one small thing, even when you first wake up in the morning, can help set you off on the right track.
With the whole phone, I there's a lot of, like, no phones when you first wake up, and personally, when I do that, when I don't go on my phone right away, I do feel better. However, we are all human beings, and none of us are perfect, but I think it automatically puts you in that fight or flight mode, right? And you start seeing stuff on the news, all these, like, terrible headlines that just pop up on your news feed right away. Like if you go on social media when you first wake up, and I'm not here to tell anyone, like, don't be on your phone for 60 minutes after you wake up. I know there are people out there that preach that, but it's this, again, being more intentional, and I have even tried in the past to, like, put my phone in another room, but, like, to be honest, I have Elena's baby camera in her room. She sleeps upstairs. I have that on my phone. So, like, I personally can't have my phone in the other room. And I think everyone just has to do what works best for them. And we're not here to tell you what to do, but that practice of slowing one thing down, no matter what that is, it can really go a long way.
100%. All right, so number 4, the exhale longer breath. This is a simple physiological hack, and it's one of the fastest ways to move your nervous system from activated to calm. It goes like this: inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6. The exhale is longer than the inhale, and that right there is the key. A longer exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest mode. It's your body's built in brake pedal. That longer exhale is you literally pressing it.
And you can do this anywhere. And if the 4 and 6 is too long for you, you can start with 3 and 5. I mean, you can pick your own, but it's really that longer exhale. And you can do it in the school pickup line. You can do it while you're washing the dishes. You can do it, I don't know, before a conversation that you're dreading or before hopping on a Zoom meeting. You can do it in bed at 2 a.m. when your brain does not want to shut off and you're not sleeping. 3 to 5 rounds is usually enough to feel a shift. And if you want to even go a step further, there's something called a physiological sigh. And it's really so, this is another type of breath work that you can do. And it's taking 2 quick inhales through your nose, followed by one slow exhale. And this one is actually, research does show that it's one of the single fastest nervous system resets that there is. And so, what that would look like is you just taking 2 quick breaths through your nose. So, you go like this, and then you exhale. So, 2 quick breaths in through your nose. And so, I actually do this one when I'm in my cold plunge. When
Oh,
people
really?
yeah, when people ask me, how do you sit in there for, 4 to 5 minutes, I'll do this breath. And then also humming is really, research also shows that it helps calm your body down super fast. So I'll do that breath work and then even just a like humming like that.
Yeah, which I think makes a lot of sense when you think about sounds and vibrations in certain meditations and why they require that. I never put that together.
It because it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest mode. Okay. Next one, number 5, we have 2 left, is the permission shift. And so this one is not physical, it's more mental, but I do think that it might be the most important one on this list. It is the practice of giving yourself permission to not do everything 100%. Permission to have those slower days when you need them, permission to not be at your best in every single moment, and the permission to be in a hard season without constantly trying to perform your way out of it, rushing through it, or fixing it.
Because so much of what keeps our nervous systems activated is the story that we're telling ourselves, that we should be further along, that we should be handling this better, that we don't have time to feel this way, that other people have it harder, so we should just get over it. And those stories, they're very exhausting. They are genuinely physiologically exhausting. Giving yourself permission to be where you are, not as a resignation, but as an act of compassion, it's one of the most regulating things that you can do. If you're looking for permission, this is it. We are giving you that permission.
Seriously, we are giving you that permission to not be 100% at all times. If you have to like write that on a post it note and stick it on your mirror so that you see it every day, whatever you have to do to give yourself that permission, it can really be life changing and nervous system changing.
Which again impacts you in your day to day, every day. So we have a bonus for you here too. Number 6 is a morning intention, and this is so worth it. So before you pick up your phone in the morning, just one grounding thing. I don't care what it is. A glass of water in silence, a deep breath, a quick mental, what am I grateful for moment. Something small that fits you. It sounds really minimal, but those 2 minutes are you saying to your nervous system before the world gets loud that we get to be quiet first. You don't need a long morning routine. You don't need to copy what somebody else does. Your one grounding intention needs to be yours and it needs to fit into your life and make sense for you.
Mhm. And if you want to add a layer onto that, just pick one word for how you want to feel that day. Not what you want to accomplish, not your to do list, just how you want to feel. Grounded, soft, present, enough, good. Every day when I wake up, I set an intention of how I want to feel. And that is me telling my body, this is how I want to feel. And you're getting into your own body instead of getting into your head first. You can write it on a sticky note. You can put it up on your mirror, say it in your head, set it as your phone background, right? Because we look at our phones a lot. Whatever you have to do, come back to it when you start to feel overwhelmed. My intention every day that I tell myself is that I want to feel good. Quite literally, that's why my TikTok and Instagram name is things that make me feel good because I think the word great and those things sometimes is not attainable, but good is a really good place for me. And so that's why that's what my intention is every day.
I love that. I think I never even think about that. I like the idea of having a word choice. I think that that really is such a grounding way to feel focused. Well, and I think that this might actually be the most important thing we say in this whole entire episode. So I want to really sit in it for a moment. You do not need to solve everything to feel a little more like yourself again. You don't need the hard or overwhelming thing to be over. You don't need the grief to be gone or the business to feel stable or motherhood to start feeling easy or the relationship to be healed. You just need moments of safety within the hard and overwhelming thing.
Moments where your body can rest, where your mind can just soften a little bit, where you aren't white knuckling your way through, but instead you're moving through with just a little bit more gentleness. And those moments are available to you. They're available right now, today, next day, before anything externally changes. Like you talked about earlier, Leah, when you start to feel kind of out of control, you feel like it's internal, right? The external things aren't going to change around you, but it's really when you can change those little internal things that you start to feel a little bit better. And that's the whole point. The tools we've talked about today are not for when your life calms down, they are for right now while you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, and something I want to add is that when you start building these small practices, something really beautiful does happen over time. You start to trust yourself more. You start to feel less at the mercy of what's happening around you. You build evidence that you can come back to yourself, that even when you drift, you know how to find your way back. And that trust, that sense of inner safety changes everything. I think it also helps build a lot of confidence.
And I also think that these little practices, it's almost like a muscle. You know, the more that you do them, they just start to integrate naturally into your life and they become easier to do. So, if you're in a season right now where you are feeling a little lost, a little unlike yourself, a little like you're holding more than you should have to hold, which I know a lot of us feel that way all the time, we do want you to know that you are not doing anything wrong. You're not failing. You are in a season that is just asking a lot of you. And that is real and that's hard. And you're allowed to say that. Like we talked about earlier, name it to tame it.
That's going to be my new life motto.
Name it to tame it? How about we have why don't you make a shirt that says that, Miss Apparel?
And we can start wearing them on this podcast episodes.
Yeah.
And instead of pushing harder to get through it, what if you just came back a little softer? What if you built just one small pause into your day, not waiting for everything to calm down first, because sometimes it doesn't, but right now in the middle of it?
Because coming back to yourself is not one big dramatic moment. It's not a retreat or a breakthrough or a perfectly crafted morning routine like we see on Instagram or TikTok. It is a series of these small, quiet choices to return to yourself over and over and over again.
Yeah, and you can start that today, right now, with something as small as 3 slow breaths, with one intentional moment, with giving yourself permission to feel what you feel without rushing away from it.
That's so huge. Feel what you feel without running away from it.
I think so much of it really is about accepting yourself and who you are in its entirety and allowing yourself to be who you are and feel what you feel.
That is enough, and you are enough. And I think that's something we all need to remember too. Lee and I want you to know that you're enough, and we all are. So, if this episode meant something to you, we would love it if you would share it with a friend, maybe someone who's going through a hard season right now, a mom who is running on empty, anyone who just needs to feel a little less alone in it. That is honestly how this podcast grows, and it would just mean the world to us if you could share it.
So come find us over on Before We Get It Right on Substack and tell us, what is your one word this week? We want to know. And as always, we're figuring it out before
Before we get it right.
right. Oh, we tried to do it in unison, guys, but we're just not that coordinated. You know what we meant.
We'll see you
See you next week.